So I just bought my first lottery ticket of my life from this place right here, this gas station. And I bought 10 tickets, and that was $20 that I know I'm never getting back. But you know, it's about the fun of it, I guess, right? So yeah, that $20 is not coming back, but I learned a lot about the lottery and how it works, and got to talk to some friends about probabilities and everything. I was kind of upset because when I got my numbers, I had numbers, like 3 numbers in a row, and I was like, oh no, those are never gonna come up. And of course, I would like to think I'm pretty good at math, but my friend had to correct me. He said that you have the same probability as those 3 numbers, those 3 particular numbers coming up, as 3 non-consecutive numbers. I said, yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, when you have a 1 in 300 million or whatever the actual probability is, yeah, that probability is also as likely as I said, non-consecutive numbers. So I was like, yeah, I feel stupid. Thanks for the correction. But we'll see. You know, I shouldn't be upset about that because I'm never gonna win. And yeah, what are you doing there, bud? Yeah, it's not a crosswalk until that person pushes the button, which they are. Ugh, drivers around here. So yeah, what would you do with your $1.5 million? And obviously you don't get that much money, but would you stay at your job? You know, we were talking about that too, and it's like, well, I would still like to work and do something, but what a lot of people do when they start companies and sell them for hundreds of millions of dollars is they end up just using that money to start other companies. And it's a lot easier to do it on the second time because you don't have to worry about where the money's coming from. You don't have to worry about revenue coming in and everything like that. You have several $100 million in startup capital. They do like to use investor money because why would you use your own money when you can use somebody else's money? But it's the knowledge that you can still feed yourself if the business fails, because you still have several $100 million left over if the business fails. And that makes the difference, because when you start a company, hopefully you have savings, but even if you had, let's say $50,000, $100,000, that's really only going to last you for so long until you really need to start making that money back. And if you have employees, you're responsible for their salaries, their benefits, and everything like that. You as an owner can choose not to get compensation. That's pretty common when things are pretty tight. You know, business is not coming in, or there's a lull in your business. Revenue is just not there. You can say, well, for a couple of months or so, I'm not going to take a paycheck. That happens. But when times are really good, you say, I'm going to take a huge paycheck. And that's the risk of being a business owner. I think a lot of employees don't really understand that. They say, well, I do work for you and I make you money, and therefore you should pay me X number of dollars. And until you actually go out there and try to earn X number of dollars on your own, try to get people to pay you that through client work or through services that you do, you don't truly understand how hard that is. Let's take a basic service salary of $40,000. You want to make $40,000, you want to start your own business, you think you can do a better job than your boss is doing. How much money do you have to make per month in order to make a $40,000 per year salary? And you come to realize that if you can't make several $1,000s, like basically it comes down to what, $3,500 a month to make $40,000, somewhere around there, that you can't do that. I mean, if you're charging your services out at $300 a pop, okay, how many of those services, how many instances of those services do you need to charge? So $300 for 3,500 is, you know, what, 11, 12 times a month? Can you do that? That's really hard. That's essentially saying I'm going to get 12 clients a month. And if you're in the carpet cleaning business, that might be easy. That's a lot easier to do than, say, one service for $3,500. So it really depends on what you're getting into. But I always hear this from people. It's like, oh, I deserve this much money. You know, I make my boss this much money, more than my, you know, I make my boss $250,000 and they only pay me $40,000. Okay, well, if you think you can go out and make $250,000, go for it. Try it. See what happens. Why don't you do it if you think you're so smart? I just realized like how hard it is to actually do it, because I've done it and it is hard. And I totally respect people that start their own businesses, and I try to encourage others to do the same, even if it's a side business. Start a side business. Hey, you're making money on YouTube, let's say. I wonder how many motovloggers actually run their revenue, their income from YouTube through an LLC. I know they don't have any clients or anything like that that would be able to sue them, but just in terms of the ability to pay off, or I should say take deductions for equipment. So let's say I made $1,000 this year in YouTube. That's probably being a little high for me anyway. But let's say you made $1,000 in YouTube, but you ended up spending $500 on a GoPro, $10 on a microphone. You know, you had to buy the gas for the motovlogs, right? And this and that, and all these expenses add up. Well, did you actually make any money? Maybe. Let's say your expenses were $800 and your profits were $200. If you did not have an LLC, you can't claim that those were expenses for your business because you don't have a business. So instead, run those revenues, that profit, well, it's actually just income at this point, through a LLC. Deduct those costs as deductions on your taxes, and what you'd only have to pay taxes on is $200 in this case instead of $1,000. And so if you're, let's just round it off, if you're in the 25% tax bracket and you made $1,000 without a business, that's $250 in taxes that you have to pay. So you really only made $750, minus the expenses, of course. So really, that you didn't make any money. Now with a business, if you ran that money through the business, you essentially on paper only made $200 because of your expenses and your deductions. Now, would you rather pay $50 in taxes and, you know, I mean, whatever it is you made and whatever it is you spent is going to be the same either way. But to the tax man, to the government, would you rather spend $250 or $50? So I wonder how many motovloggers are actually running their profits from YouTube through an LLC. I mean, I might be surprised. Maybe all the big ones are, but I think even if you're making $500, it doesn't have to be for YouTube. It can be through, you know, if you're a woodworker, you can sell your stuff, even if it's just for friends and you're making $500. Well, you might not have to report that to the IRS in the first place, but if you are making substantial amounts of money and you have expenses against that, I would totally start an LLC. And there's other benefits too. I mean, if you have clients, there's a possibility that they can sue you and all of your assets as an individual. I'm just gonna go straight here. Come on, dude. So in Idaho, which is where I am, of course, it's $100 to file an LLC. It's a single piece of paper. It might be two, but it's one piece of paper, front and back, and you file it with the Secretary of State, and you're done. So I highly recommend anybody that makes any kind of money on, even if it's $100, to do it that way. It doesn't cost you anything to have it, so.
I mean, if you're working 16-hour days or whatever it is I do, you're gaining twice as much of experience as the average person.